The time has come. We are able to make tier lists based on fully revealed Ascendancy classes in Path of Exile 2, and I'm all here for it. Granted, we have a lot of information still lacking, but at least we have the notable information from every single node in Path of Exile for all of the Ascendancy classes that we're going to have access to in the early access launch, and we'll have more throughout the early access duration. But for now, let's talk about the Ascendancy priority. And I'm going to start off by doing what everyone's been waiting for. Where I'm going to label the minion classes. Let's just smack them in and be done with it. I made a video earlier talking about the differences between minions-oriented focus Ascendancies, which has been mostly talking about the Infernalist versus the Gremlin Legionnaire. So, which one is going to win? Well, it's very clear. Infernalist is going to go up to an S tier. Let's get that out of the way. If that's what you've been waiting for, that's the answer. And I'm putting a Gremlin Legionnaire on an A tier. And then I'm just going to do this. Cue the elevator music. There you go. The tier list has been completed. What was that? About 1 minute into the video. Hope everybody liked it. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe for more content. Till then, stay safe and keep rocking. Okay, for real. Let's can I bring them down? I can't even bring them down anymore. All right, let's talk about it. Infernalist, I believe it's going to be the #1 minion-related ascendancy, and because of the free reservation Infernal Hellhound, I think the Gremlin Legionnaire will be the second one. I'm not too keen on the other classes when it comes to minion-related focus, and that's kind of where the minion stuff stops when it comes to ascendancy-related pickups. I'll be starting Infernalist myself. I'll play the Gremlin Legionnaire at a later time, probably doing some Spectre-oriented stuff since we get extra skills as well as extra levels, and most importantly, the extra quality as well. But I'm very excited for that. But the one cool thing with the Gremlin Legionnaire is the extra addition of using 2 support gems rather than 1 on the board. But let's go through it. Which class is this? It's one of those unga bunga boring guys. Sorry, DM. That one is the Titan, right? Yes, this is the Titan. So essentially, when it comes to the Titan, I do have some notes here somewhere. The Titan, I basically wrote, and I basically made the general notes for this. And the Titan, I wrote slam, 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 slam. And what was that last word? You might think I was going to say slam again, but it wasn't. Instead, what I wrote is inventory quality of life, because that felt really odd. Like super, super odd. Inventory quality of life felt really odd. But what's really cool with the Titan is that the node after, literally the node right after the extra 20 back inventory slots. This node here, number 4, 20 inventory slots. The node right after, 50% increased effect of small passives. I think this is absolutely cracked. Like, genuinely cracked. So that's going to be in one of the cool things, and that's going to bring up the warrior, or the Titan in this case, a few tiers because of that. But other than that, this class is going to be focused on slamming. It's going to be focusing on applying stuns and heavy stuns from this ascendancy. And I'm going to be real. I'm going to do this tier list based on my preferential choices. And I'm just going to leave the Titan down there on F tier because I really don't like that playstyle. You're going to be a slow-moving, unga-bunga, brain-dead kind of barbarian playstyle with a two-handed weapon, thinking you're cool, but you're really not, and it's really cringe. And then you're going to stun enemies. And that just feels really awkward. I mean, I'm already cringe as it is. I don't need to play a character that is cringe. There's a reason I play the coolest things in the game, which is minions, because it makes me look a little cooler till people see my face. So we're leaving the Titan on the F tier. Second one is the Warbringer. This guy has the monkey. Monkey see, monkey do. Which is not doing much else than... and then he just ran off to a fucking tree and disappeared. However, we got the information here that each of your totems that you summon will trigger the Ancestral Spirit minion to fight for you. And if the totem that summoned the minion dies, then the Ancestral Spirit will too. So it's actually supposed to fight for you. But it didn't in the showcase. But it's supposed to. So that's pretty cool. But, you know, monkey minion build, I don't know. Maybe I'll dive into that. However, this is more of a totem-oriented focus on this ascendancy. Looking at the warrior theme slamming kind of approach, but we saw some footage using Sunder totem on some totem, Sunder ability on a totem, which is really cool to see. A very high focus on that. And then there's also some block-oriented focus, defensive nodes here in the bottom section of this, as well as the possibility to dive into Warcry. Now, biased as I am, or as biased as I am, I'm going to move him up to C tier. And this is because it's still a goddamn warrior. Okay, it's still the brained Onga Bonga playstyle, but I do like the totem approach, so that's why he's going to get a little nudge upwards in the tier list here. Next up is the Witchunter. My notes on the Witchunter is as follows. Questioning the decimating and culling strike being worth it. Asmodeus made a really good, that's a YouTuber by the way, check him out, made a really good video on number 2 and number 3, which is basically making your first initial hit on a target, shake off a chunk of enemy's HP, but if you do this, the HP on the enemies is no longer going to be full HPs. You basically remove the value of modifiers or skills on the tree and support skills that's going to be increased damage against full HP enemy or high HP enemy. And you have the culling strike, which is then the node beforehand, which is culling an enemy when they reach a certain threshold of HP, removing the value of increased modifiers of damage that gets you increased damage when the enemy is below low life, which is 35% or lower. So those things in mind, I feel like, well, from a PoE1 perspective, we're in a position where we get culling strike from a variety of options. It still remains to be a support gem. Wasting 2 ascendancy nodes on that doesn't feel that good. So as a direct result of this, I'm not a big fan of this. However, they have a weapon skill tree passive nodes here on the left, the Weapon Master. So I'm going to explain how this works. This node turns 20 of your regular passive skill tree points into weapon set skill points. This allows you to have a drastically higher amount of skill points that will be dynamically changing based on the weapon you're using. So you can have a bare bone skill tree. When you use weapon set number 1, you have a ton of points placed at specific modifiers that scales whatever you're doing with that weapon. When you swap to the other, all of those points can then be switched dynamically to scale something else that is fitting for that second weapon or set that you're using. And turning 20 of those into these dynamic changes allows you to have a better efficiency for each weapon individually. So this is kind of the thing you want to go for if you like the weapon swap mechanic and want to play around with that. I actually think that's really cool. Whether or not it's going to be good, it's left to say, but it looks really cool. And it seems to be a very boss-oriented focus, essentially, from there. The number 6 and 7 and 4 and 5 is the whole concentration when it comes to breaking the enemy concentration. The number 5 ramping damage with the concentration. I think this is really cool. 6 and 7 is more defensive-oriented by reducing your armor and evasion, but it does help you with blocking spell-oriented or elemental-oriented damage incoming from enemies around you. And then we have the number 8, which I think is really cool, being the only clear speed focus ascendancy node on this tree, where you have a 10% chance for enemies you kill to explode, dealing 100% of the enemy's max life as physical damage, which is a lot of damage. And most importantly, you double this chance against undead and demons. And that's, I think, is really cool. Because I think this is a really cool class, I wanted to push the Witchunter up around an A tier. But again, I am very biased, so I can't put it at an A tier. And the reason why is because his name is a Witchunter, and I'm going to play a witch, so therefore I put it on a B. I think that's a solid and valid argument. Chronomancer! In the list, we have the following text saying, time-controlling maniac focusing a lot on cooldown reduction and resetting cooldowns. I think, genuinely, that these nodes here suck big time. I don't think that they are attractive enough. I might be wrong, but at first glance, I don't think any of these nodes are attractive enough to warrant not doing the other nodes. And the other nodes is 1, 2, and then 3 and 4. So that's number 1, 4, 3, and 2. Or 1, 2, 3, 4. The reason why is that's all of your ascendancy nodes. What these nodes will provide you is the time snap to reset cooldowns. Number 1 gives you 33% chance to not consume a cooldown when used, even if they have really high cooldowns. Cooldown times. Number 3 gives you the time freeze to literally freeze enemy in time. And then you can literally reset the cooldown and do it again. And then we have number 4, which is a temporal rift that allows you to passively leave after images of your recent past. And if you cast a spell to return to your oldest after image, teleport to that location and resetting your life, mana, and energy shield to the values they had at that time. Not only a positional skill to use, but also resetting and saving you from taking large amounts of damage without needing to resort to your life flash, for example. I just don't see how the other nodes can compete with this, but let's put it this way. I'm personally a bigger fan of the Stormweaver. I really am. it looks more fun to play. But the mechanical applications that this brings to the table are so refreshing and so cool. I have to put this on a really high tier. So therefore, the Chronomancer for me is going to be in an A tier. It seems to have a very large set of options for player agency to design how you want to play the game with cooldown application and running with big cooldown abilities that you're then resetting. I'm actually very excited to see what we can come up with in the community for this specific class. The other one is, as I mentioned, the one I prefer to play when I go to play it, and that is the Stormweaver. Stormweaver note says as following: the Archmage class and or Mind Over Matter class. And then it says, all cold and lightning focused. Why is that the case? Well, number 8 provides you with Arcane Surge. Straight off the bat, you have Arcane Surge. Arcane Surge grants you more, that's multiplicative, cast speed, as well as more multiplicative mana regen. The node right after is in the 9th corner, gives you increased effect of Arcane Surge on you per 15 max mana. Let's do some quick numbers for you math nerds out there, all right? Very simple. Let's just pretend that we're in a position where you have 4,500 mana. That is 300% increased effect of Arcane Surge. Arcane Surge, or Arcane Surge, that would let you have 30% multiplicative more cast speed and 60% more mana regeneration. And that doesn't seem like an overkill, exaggerated number. That sounds insane to me. And Mind Over Matter makes you take all of your damage onto your mana pool. So you have the mana regen, you have more cast speed. It just seems to be the Archmage class. Other nodes is recoup mechanic to rail your energy shield. You can make it so that all types of damage, not just lightning damage, will apply shocks on enemies and a bunch of other things in this class. I think this is really cool, but one thing I want to point out is the Tempest Caller, allowing you to trigger Elemental Storm when you crit with a spell. And this creates a stationary, Fire, Cold, or Lightning Storm at the target location for a duration, based on the highest elemental damage for the type of hit that triggered the storm. Hits which do not deal elemental damage will not trigger the storm. I saw the footage of this and the reveal. It looks fantastic. I'm personally very excited about this. I think it looks really cool. And that's about it. So that's basically the list of this. And we will be seeing how this is going to scale as we move forward. I might be off on the numbers. I hope I'm not. But basically what I'm seeing here is that this is going to be the Archmage class moving into Path of Exile 2. Again, I wanted to put the Chronomancer below the Stormweaver. The only reason I'm not is because the Chronomancer has some really cool things. So I have no choice but to put the Stormweaver next to the Chronomancer on an A tier. Next one up is the Bloodmage. Now, I know I'm biased. Okay, I know. You don't have to complain and tell me. Like, I don't want to see a bunch of comments in the comments down below this video telling me how I'm a witch simp or chilling for the witch. I don't want to hear it, okay? I don't. We all know I am, okay? Out there, I said it. You don't have to tell me, all right? So I don't want to see those comments. The Bloodmage is so fucking cool, dude. I literally have the artwork for this class as my desktop background. It is so goddamn cool. There's some negative parts of this, though. First off, this is the only class we've seen so far that has an Ascendancy node that you have to take as your first one to get anywhere. This gets you the skill Life Remnants. Since this gives you a skill, you can also support this. And it also makes it so that all of your abilities will have a base life cost equal to the base mana cost. Now you're going to spend life to cast your abilities. That might sound terrible, but hear me out. The Life Remnants is going to allow you to pick up life shards that drops from enemies that you kill or from the targets that you crit. Every few seconds, you can crit a target, and if you crit, it drops these Life Remnants. And if you pick those up, you grant your life, and this can overflow. What overflow refers to is that this type of mechanic allows you to have up to double your maximum HP. So if you have 2,000 life as your max life, you can pick up a bunch of Life Remnants and end up with 4,000 life. So this Bloodmage is literally a life stacking powerhouse, if you will. The other nodes available is things like damage leeches, your spell damage leeches life. You can have infinite duration on curses. You can get extra damage as physical damage, and elemental damage also contributes to bleeding magnitude, which is really cool. But the other really important nodes to look at is 5, 6, and 7, 8. What these are doing is, number 5, for example, is allowing you to get increased critical strike damage bonus per 40 life, which was nerfed because it was 20 or 25 before. And the node following that is also increasing the base critical strike chance for all of your spells, which allows you to have this high critical strike focus on this specific type of build to play or ascendancy, class fantasy, whilst being in a position where the life remnants can then apply or drop these life remnants on single target boss fights by simply critting them. And that's something I really think is really cool for this class. I like the thematic of it, and the artwork is absolutely fantastic. 7 and 8, however, is pretty cool as well, where 25% of life loss from hits is prevented, like a Progenesis Flask in PoE 1, by the way, and then that much life is lost over 4 seconds instead. And the number 8 is gaining energy shield of your equipped body armor as extra maximum life, further doubling down on this whole life stacking approach. So I know I'm biased. I don't give a fuck, okay? So I'm just going to smack this little bitch up to an S tier. And honestly, one of the first spell-oriented builds I'll play in the early access is going to be a Bloodmage, because it looks absolutely insane, and I can't wait to try it out. Invoker, however, is quite interesting. First couple of nodes started getting, you know, my little minion senses tingling a little bit, because the number 1 node on the top corner there, or on the top of the screen, is gaining 1 spirit for every 6 energy shield on equipped body armor, or 50 innovation rating from your equipped body armor, but you cannot gain a spirit from equipment. Now, this looked really cool, but nothing else really spoke to me regarding minions, so that's why we kind of disregarded that approach. The second node continuing there is evasion rating also grants you physical damage mitigation, which is really cool, but lowers your evasion rating. So in Invoker, the notes I have in my little document I made is basically that it is the Inquisitor class of Path of Exile 2. It's most importantly going to be the number 1 choice for the guys that likes cock. Big cocks. Cocks everywhere. You can actually run multiple cocks. And like the words from Subtractem, it's all about finding that golden cock limit. It's all about the cocks, and the more cocks you can get, the cooler the builds will be. Or you can just go for 1 massive cock, and some people prefer that. Other people like to dual wield cocks and go for that, and that's really cool as well. And the reason I talk about this is because of the node number 7 here. Number 7 is making your meta skills gain 35% more energy. So the way the meta skills work, such as cock and, you know, multiple cocks, you can have different types of cocks as well. You know, they come in all types of so what happens is that they require to build up energy, and when they reach the threshold of energy, they will trigger whatever spell or skill is in them. And that's how you basically make the cocks explode and, you know, shoot out what they need to shoot out. That's how it works, guys. So essentially, this will be the skill, the kind of ascendancy you want to run when it comes to playing with, you know, cast and crit or these type of trigger abilities. So this will be what I refer to as the trigger class. Now, although for a fact that this is a very, very, very popular kind of playstyle in Path of Exile, and I don't think that's going to change for PoE 2 either, I like this kind of approach as well very much, as I am, in fact, a very huge fan of cocks. Because of this, we're going to be looking at a very high tier just from this alone. On the other hand, it has a little bit of focus of elementals approach, or elemental damage, such as cold and lightning is extra damage, and ailments of that, including the Unbound Avatar, which is furthering increasing your elemental prowess. The Inquisitor-related topic is coming down to the Sunder My Enemies, which is down in the bottom right corner, which you get critical hits, ignore non-negative enemy monsters' elemental resistances, which essentially is a Inquisitor 2.0 version. In PoE 1, the Inquisitor class, what it's doing is that it ignores enemy resistances. Whether or not you're hitting an enemy with lightning damage, and the enemy has negative lightning damage, or 1,000,000% lightning resistance, it does not matter. The hit of that damage that you do will treat the enemy as if it had 0 resistances. In PoE 2, for the Invoker, what it's doing instead is allows your crits to ignore non-negative resistances. So if the enemy has positive resistances, it will treat it at 0. But if the enemy has negative res, it will not interrupt that and just do those increased damages. So I think that's a really neat way to, a neat thing to point out for this class. But like I said, it is the trigger cock dual wielder. However, I don't think it will be competing with my S tier witch lovers up there. So I'm going to put it up on an A tier. I think it's going to be very exciting to check it out. And we're going to move over to the Chalupa. Chalupa is the Acolyte of Chayula, the chaos-oriented monk style. And in my notes, I basically just wrote a walking breach lord himself, an instant mana leech, and can turn into an instant ES leech. Let's tackle this a little bit in a TLDR fashion. On the top side, you have instant mana leech, and Jonathan has confirmed that mana leech is something that we're only going to be seeing for attacks, not for spells. The following node allows you to make mana leech and also recover energy shield, but you can't recharge energy shield as a downside for that. This allows us to have combination of things like Chaos Inoculation together with Mind Over Matter together with Eldritch Battery. That essentially will make you have 1 HP, and then all of your energy shield moves over to your mana pool, but your mana pool is going to take all of the damage before your life, and then you have energy shield covering that. And with Eldritch Battery, you're going to spend energy shield instead of mana. So now you don't need mana at all. You don't need it whatsoever. And all of your damage will be taken on your mana pool, which you're also going to use as a resource for your abilities, which you're also going to be instantly leeching. So that's a pretty cool thing to play around with. And I think that's the most important part to point out here is that it's been confirmed that the Monk is supposed to be the little faster, mobile, agile, martial arts combat playstyle in the game. And it's also been confirmed to be one of the more squishy playstyles, or squishy classes rather. Whereas the Acolyte of Chayula seems to be doubling down, at least with these nodes, theoretically, to become a really tanky version of the build. Another node is Maximum Chaos Resistance, really cool. Then we have a Trickster-related node back from Path of Exile 1, which is the number 4, where you get a % chance to gain percent of damage with hits as extra chaos. 3 different versions. All of them are going to be able to hit at the same time as well. Really cool, where you're emphasizing the idea of doing chaos damage. But the cool part with this class is number 5 and 6. Basically, you can create a breach around yourself. Around this breach that you create, you'll start seeing flames of Chayula, either in the form of red, blue, and purple. These different approaches is providing the red ones giving you maximum life leech if you pick one up when you see them on the ground, and the blue one will give you mana, which could be instant and give you energy shield. And the purple ones will allow you to get a stacking buff, stacking up to 10 times to get your extra % of damage as chaos damage for 5 seconds, and it will refresh as you pick one up at all times. And the effective duration of Flames of Chayula on you is doubled if you put the next point at number 6. I think that's really cool personally. And another really cool thing with this class, I really think they've done a good job with this, is number 7, which connects to 8 and 9, is this. Number 7 will basically render all of your spirits to just disappear. They're more gone than Sana. She left the campaign in PoE1 and we haven't seen her since. Maybe we'll see her in PoE2. We'll see. What it does is that it gets you maximum base darkness instead, which is going to be 100, but also plus 5 maximum darkness per character level. What it does is that whenever you take damage on life or energy shield, it's going to instead reserve 1 darkness, which is your former spirit, if possible, instead of making you take the damage. And the darkness reservation will last for 10 seconds. After 10 seconds, the reservation goes away. Number 8 and number 9, starting with 8, allows you to get 1% of damage as extra chaos damage per 20 unreserved darkness. So that's another way for you to double down on the idea of having a defensive layer, but also doing more chaos damage. Whereas the number 9 doubles down on the defensive approach of this mechanic, where 50% reduced darkness reservation duration to faster get that reservation back to have that defensive layer. So I think that this class kind of has this little bonus approach of having a good trifecta. It has good offensive scaling, it has good defensive scaling, and it also has the possibility to change to add this really cool approach of interesting, unique mechanics, such as the whole Walking Breach Lord. And this is the only class so far that we talked about in this video that I'm going to put next to my witches. So now we have a sandwich. Sorry, let's move him there. There we go. Now we have a sandwich. There we go. Moving over to the Pathfinder. My notes on the Pathfinder, let me take a look at them. They're saying the following. Flask-oriented ascendancy, where you can use Flask as your offensive skills, and poison-focused nodes. Both classes on the Ranger are very straightforward. Essentially, I don't think we're having access to these nodes anywhere else except for this ascendancy. And this is giving us the Path of Exile concoction abilities in 5 different versions. We have the poisonous version, where you start casting your mana flask as your damage source instead, doing poison damage, or chaos attacks rather. The fulminating one is doing this with lightning, shattering is cold, explosive is fire, and the bleeding is physical. So you get to choose one of these and utilize your mana flask as your source of damage. Now I think that's pretty cool, but it also means that if you want that class fantasy, the Pathfinder is the choice for you. I'm not a big fan of this. I'm not sure how it's going to perform. Not a big fan of this personally. However, there's some other things involved here as well. For example, the node 1 and 2 is doubling down on the whole flask approach, where you get flask charges gained, life flask effects do not remove when unreserved life is filled, or life flask effects do not queue. Number 3, for example, on the left here, is going to doubling into the poison-oriented version of this class instead, where most damaging poison on enemies you kill is spreading to other enemies within 1.5 meters, giving you that clearing proliferation approach. And the following node, number 4, is doubling the number of poisons you can inflict on enemies, but lowers the actual duration of the poisons to make you have a faster ramping of poison stacks, but a lower duration of them. However, much like the Deadeye that we're going to talk about in a bit, the class itself focuses very much on the idea of not getting hit. So number 6 first gives you 5 passive skill points, and that's it. However, number 7 and 8 is going to doubling down on the whole speed approach for this, where you're essentially in a position where you get less movement speed penalty when you're using skills whilst moving. Because the essential plan for playing a ranger is, why bother trying to survive a hit when you can just make sure you don't get hit in the first place? That's going to work till it doesn't. That's why I don't like playing ranger. You will be immortal till you're not. You're alive till you're dead. Mic drop. Anyways, the other node is also very straightforward. Essentially, we have the Relentless Pursuit, where your speed is unaffected by slows. This allows you to be essentially immune to being CC'd in a way where you're going to get slowed down and actually become hit, to further emphasize on this whole defensive approach to this. So that's basically the Pathfinder for you in a TLDR fashion. And I will say this, the Pathfinder, you can just sit there on an F tier because I don't like it and I'm super biased, and you look bad. Like, what's up with this outfit? Look at her. Look at her. Next Ranger class. My notes is saying the following. Easy way to accumulate frenzy charges, also able to double the efficiency of consuming said charges. Generic projectile / archery themed modifiers, such as speed via tailwind, reduced damage taken per tailwind, extra markers, can choose between far shot and point blank, and having access to extra projectiles. This is one of the most straightforward and basic ideas that you could ever think of. The Deadeye does exactly what you'd think a Deadeye would do. I'm not going to dive into any super detailed comments on this. Essentially, it's basically giving the options for 1 and 2 to have a chance for your frenzy charge when you get one to get to the maximum amount of frenzy charges. When you consume the frenzy charges, number 2 has a 50% chance to double the bonus you get from consuming them. The number 3 just basically says you have no accuracy penalty at distance. You don't need to invest into accuracy when you're shooting projectiles. And they have the number 4 is allowing you to get either point blank or far shot. Basically, what it's saying is that one gives you damage increase if the enemy is close to you. The other one gives you damage increase if the enemy is far from you. It's really not that difficult. Number 5 is saying you have an additional projectile. Oh my God, that was so refreshing to hear that that's going to be as an ascendancy node. Like, there's nothing special with this. There's nothing new, nothing cool, nothing cool. Like, it's not a breath of fresh air. It's just a generic, kind of boring, in my opinion. And that's my only problem, because the other ascendancies are bringing something cool to the table. Anyways, number 6 gives you some additional markers. Okay, generic again. Number 7 is the whole tailwind, which they have changed with the way it's going to work. So this I'll do to mention. Number 7 gets you tailwind when you use a skill similar to PoE 1, but you lose all tailwind when you're hit. Again, emphasizing on the idea of why bother surviving a hit when you can just make sure you don't get hit in the first place. So what Tailwind is doing is a stacking buff that you get, giving you increased movement speed and increased skill speed and 15% increased evasion rating per stack, stacking up to 10 times. And then the node after is that you take less damage per Tailwind, 3% up to 30 then at 10 stacks, but you lose all of them as soon as you take a hit. That's it. I really don't have anything else to say. I will say that I think that generically and power-wise speaking, Deadeye speaks more to me than the Pathfinder, so I kind of want to put it a B tier, but then I realized it's a Ranger, so let's put it down C. And there it goes, folks. This is the official, most true and most accurate tier list in the entire world, given to you by the G-Man himself. Hit the like button on your way out of the video. Leave a comment down below. Not about how I'm a witch simp. Just don't say that. I know. Okay, I don't want to read those comments. But hit the subscribe button, like the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. So till then, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Stay safe. I actually failed. I actually failed the fucking outro. It was going so well. I didn't say stay safe and keep rocking. Oh, Kikis, I'm so sorry. I'm not redoing it, though.